right. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to this live demonstration of the Salto platform. My name is Eric, and I run the Sustainable SuiteScript community for NetSuite developers. And I am joined today by one of Salto's customer engineers, Jeff Rutledge. How's it going, Jeff?
Doing well, thanks. How you are?
Great. I'm doing just fine. A little bit of housekeeping before we get started. We have scheduled a full hour for this, but we are reserving plenty or most of that time for your questions. So the Q&A for the webinar is open. I'll be keeping an eye on that throughout the session. So if you have questions for me or for Jeff as we go along, just go ahead and drop that right into the Q&A tab. And the session is being recorded. It'll be distributed out to all of you in attendance, and afterward it will be posted to Salto's YouTube channel as well for anyone not in attendance. I want to start by just quickly highlighting the mission, the purpose of the Salto platform. So Salto is not a consulting company looking to sell you any services or anything like that. They are a software company that has built a powerful DevOps platform for business application teams to plan, review, deploy, monitor changes to those business platforms. So it supports platforms like NetSuite, which we're here to talk about today, but also Salesforce, Zendesk, Jira, and a whole bunch more that I'm sure Jeff could elaborate on if we need him to.
Sure.
And you can actually check it out yourself. You can even follow along if you want. You can try out the Salto platform for yourself by heading over to salto.io, and you can sign up for a totally free 30-day trial there. And you can even schedule a free personalized demo. We've done several of these demos this year, and we've done sessions like doing sort of a full overview of the platform. We've shown how to identify and clean up stale customizations. We've shown how to automate deployment processes and then how to monitor and set up alerting on your customizations, your changes. All of that using the Salto platform. You can find all of those recordings on the Salto YouTube channel as well if you want to get caught up. And to bring the focus of what we're talking about today, as NetSuite developers, administrators, consultants, we are often either inheriting or building very complex, highly customized NetSuite accounts. And so we need to understand those environments quickly. We need to deploy changes to those accounts without disrupting all of those other complex customizations. And we need our team to be able to communicate about those changes beforehand and after with stakeholders outside, often outside of our teams, even outside of our companies, very frequently. And Salto can help you do all of those things. It can help your team sort of get their bearings in the environment. It can help to coordinate deployments. That's kind of at its core what it is. And it can help you communicate about those deployments and monitor them after the fact. And so we're going to demonstrate aspects of all of those and how Salto can help you do that, do those things. I think with that, I'm going to stop talking for a while and let Jeff take the reins.
Sounds good.
Relinquish the screen.
All right, let me see if I've
Uh,
got one showing. I think I do. You see my Salto page, Eric?
I sure do.
Okay, excellent. Well, I given the poll at the start, there's a lot of folks. Well, there's quite a range of experience with Salto on the call. So, what I like to do is I'll start with a bit of a description about how Salto operates and the basics of what we do, and then we'll move kind of slowly across the spectrum of stuff that helps the team in simple ways to more complete uh, change management processes. And I'll talk to, although I'm afraid I don't have a demo today, but I'll talk to some of the even more advanced topics around continuous integration, continuous deployment, and how if you're a very advanced NetSuite development shop or want to become one, and you want to use VS Code or WebStorm and GitHub and all of those DevOps type tools, I can talk to how we fit into that tool chain. So I'll do that at the end. And I'm looking for commentary along the way as well. There is the Q&A, and the chat, and Eric's going to keep an eye on that. And I would really love to get some interaction with some questions from you folks. So don't hesitate to put something in there. I have a story arc that I plan on going through, but I'm more than happy to take detours to answer specific questions. I think that just makes it all the more valuable for you and the audience. So please don't hesitate. Okay, so just to give a start, the NetSuite is, we always start in this world where we've been working here for a long time. All of you folks are probably familiar with this screen. It's just one of the many things you can do to customize your NetSuite environment. And in this case, it's a 2-level sales order approval workflow. But there's all kinds of other things too. There's scripting, there's custom fields, there's all sorts of things that are a day-to-day requirement for customizing NetSuite. And when there's more than one person doing that, as soon as you get 2 people, right off the bat, there are coordination efforts and potential conflicts, potential collisions of the work that you're doing. And so, I want to talk today a little bit about how Salto can just manage the whole process, and in so doing, create a more team-oriented, visible process that enables the idea of teams working together and doing things in parallel and not stepping on each other's toes. To accomplish all that, the first thing that Salto does is to do something called a fetch. Now, a fetch is what when Salto goes out through the APIs, through SDF, but also some other APIs, and it asks a NetSuite instance lots of questions about how it's configured. And then it takes all those answers and it compiles them into this map of the environment. So I can see things like, my accounts, my currencies, my locations, roles, save searches. All of these elements are downloaded into Salto, kind of parsed out, and what we do is we create a description of the elements. For example, that workflow we were just looking at. And that description, it's actually stored as a text file underneath all of this. But we create this layer on top that allows things to look a little bit better. And that description gives you things like, the regular stuff, the name and the script ID and some of the contexts and that sort of thing. And then, in the case of a workflow, it's going to give you all the workflow states and all the workflow custom fields that are in use, etc. And then it will also, at the very bottom, where's my dependencies gone? That's interesting. It'll also show you the things that this workflow depends on. So this workflow is going to depend on some custom fields. It's going to depend on some workflow action scripts, some roles, etc. And you can see them if I look at some of the workflow states, for example. You can see that there are fields being used in here. I'm trying to find one here. Actually, I can find it more easily if I switch over to the text file. Remember the text file view I was showing you before. That text file view, this is the same information exactly, but it's the underlying text. You don't really have to understand this. It's kind of like the XML in NetSuite, although it's a lot more friendly to read. It's a lot more human readable. But this will allow me to see some of those dependencies that I was talking about before. So I can see that this thing depends on a script, a first level approval field. So this is a field of a custom transaction body field. It's an instance of one of those, and this is a dependence on those. So Salto keeps track of all those dependencies. That's the map. Usually we show them in this screen here. I'm a little bit baffled, but my UI seems to be have glitched. So forgive me on that. Normally down here, it'll tell you all the dependencies for all these elements. For example, I can go to a role. I think this 1078 is a role that I've got, and it also is missing my dependencies. Oh well. But you can see here also things like, the stuff we compile, the stuff we download and store in Salto gives you just a really good view of all the things that exist in Salto. and how they compare to other stuff. Like I can compare this role to some other role and see what's different about those. And so as from a team perspective, what this allows you to do is to bring folks on board into the team, have them, research what is visible within Salto and all the relationships. Had my UI been working properly, but those relationships are very clear. And then in addition to that, get some explanations of stuff. So if I'm looking at that workflow, for example, and I don't know, this is a big long workflow, and even in NetSuite, it's all here. The functionality is here, and I could kind of begin to understand it. But I can get there much more quickly if I take that text file, which underlies everything in Salto. If I take that text file and I feed it into an AI model, everyone's talking about AI, it's big fad, but this really really useful kind of situation we found ourselves in was that everything we had was text files. AI loves text files, so we just fed AI text files with a little bit of coaching, not even very much coaching at all, and it can take our text files and respond to us with a description of exactly what's going on. And so with a workflow, it takes a bit of extra time because these are big. But here is the description of this workflow, what it does. So in terms of bringing teams up to speed, this is a great way to kind of get started, bring new people in, have other people review your work more easily, and have them understand exactly what's going on.
Yeah. Can I jump in here, Jeff?
Yes, please.
You said a key word that I need to jump in on, and then also this right here. I'll start with this. Like, if you click over to the NetSuite UI of the workflow,
Okay.
probably anyone who's worked in a workflow, if you've seen something like this, you know how many clicks it takes to sort of build the understanding of what is this workflow doing. So if you are trying to onboard new team members, or if you're just sort of this is the first time you've ever seen this workflow, you're coming in and you need to fix something about it, customize, add something, whatever it might be. You've got to build that contextual understanding of what is it doing. And it would take so many clicks. You have to click on every state, every action, every transition, and you have to click through multiple dialogues for all of those to see all of the different steps and conditions that are involved. And it just takes a crazy amount of clicks, first of all, and then also compiling of that information. You have to like write it down in a separate document or something like that just to keep track of it all. Because you can't, the more complicated it gets, you can't keep track of all it in your head. Salto lets you just click a button and it will describe in plain English what that workflow is doing. And it will at least give you that rudimentary idea to know sort of where your whatever change you need to make fits into that process, or just help you build that baseline understanding of, hey, I'm inheriting this account, or I'm brand new to this team. Let me just get my bearings on some of these customizations. This right here, one click of a button, plain English description of what's going on in this workflow is incredible. Uh, I never want to click through all those dialogues in a workflow. It takes so long. Uh, it's too much context.
Yep.
And we can do
Awesome.
this with Salto can do this with pretty much any customization, any of your custom objects. It can help you build that contextual understanding. So this is one way that Salto helps you, especially in the onboarding phase. Again, whether onboarding new teammates, new hires, or just sort of a new area of an account or a new client's account that you're trying to get your bearings in, something like that. This lets you sort of start to build that map, that contextual understanding of what's in this account, what's going on. Not only the describe feature, but also the dependency mapping, showing me, okay, this workflow needs these fields, needs those records, and we can sort of explore that chain. I can see this, the workflow needs a field, and that field needs a search, and we can sort of follow that dependency tree all the way through.
Yep.
Super useful for getting your bearings in, again, often highly customized accounts.
Yep. Awesome. And any questions in the chat or in the Q&A?
Yeah, there's one here from Anonymous.
Okay.
Does the explain feature work for SuiteScript? So can it look at your code and explain that?
That's a great question. I forget. I think we had this question before, and I was going to go and research it, and I
You're gonna try
probably
it
researched
live?
it, and then I
You could try
subsequently
it live.
forgot that too. um, So if we look at a RESTlet, I wonder what we're going to get from this. If we're going to get information about the file itself or just the config. Looks like that's just the config.
Yes, if we click through to find the file
Yeah.
itself, I
Let me
wonder
find a file here.
we can do it that
Let's
way.
just go and find a sweet
We just
script.
pick any JavaScript file in here and see
Yeah,
if
let's
it
do okay.
see if
Let's
it's
do the workflow action script that's attached to that workflow I was just looking at. It's this one here. This disable fields.
going off
Plain-
book, just doing it live. I love it.
Yeah, yeah. Let's see how it goes. And if this doesn't work, it's a feature request. I'm sure it's already there. Well, a little bit. Uh, it might not be a very complicated script. I don't know the depth of the script myself, but it did get this right. Does disable this. So that's a great question. I think further research is required. I'm not sure how we get information out to people after the call here, but we'll take that away. Of course, that should work. I mean, and frankly, code analysis is a well-defined path, and so there would be zero uh, kind of barriers in our way to take this JavaScript code basically and feed it into an AI code a code interpreter and have it put out something useful. I'm not sure if we do that in this explain. I'm not sure how what we give. Do we give, as I said before, we have all these things appear as NACL files, right? So the script has the NACL file itself. NACL is the NACL language. It's the underlying language to all the text files that we've got. So I think what we do is we feed it this thing. Although I did see something in there about on the explain about it doing some disabling of fields. I don't think it got that from the title, but it might have. So anyway, great question. Again, I have to go and refresh my research on that one.
Yeah, it's definitely something worth trying out. You could try it out in your own account, see what you get back. The button is at least there. You can see what you get back with something you understand or know well. And if I have learned anything from partnering with Salto, it's that their engineering is very responsive to feature requests like that. So if it's not doing what you think it should, I'm sure they can make it happen pretty quickly.
Yep,
If it's at
absolutely.
all possible, they can make it happen pretty fast.
Um, So the other thing I would mention is like I have all this mapped for dev. I've also got it for prod. I can do some really cool comparisons between the two environments. I just have a test compare running here, and that's another way to come up to speed. Is like, okay, well, what's different about my dev and my prod environment? And we can see here very specifically what those differences are. And I can look in the file cabinet for a particular sweet script, for example, and I can see that let's see, do I have any diffs here? No, those aren't diffs. Let me go to this one here. This script here has a difference between dev and prod, and it'll tell me on a line by line basis what those differences are. And so we can see that my buddy Dan was putting in some please don't forget me notes in the log. So um so that's another way that helps teams get up to speed, is to understand the differences between dev and prod and begin to ask questions of
Yeah.
their teammates and see what's there.
Yeah, so this, like, if you have a refresh coming up, or you just kind of want to see what's all the work I have in flight in my sandbox, uh, this comparison is incredibly useful for doing that. You can
Yeah.
sort of orient yourself again on what are the differences between these environments, but that in effect gives you a nice view of what's all the work that's in flight, what's in progress right now, uh,
Mhm.
based on those differences.
Another place where in-flight work is often captured is in something like Jira. And so the other great team magnet here is to enable the configuration with Jira, enable the integration with Jira. So I've got a ticket here that says, hey, we need a new 2-level approval process. And I'm sure there's going to be lots of discussion about this. And maybe there's like, yeah, okay, go for it. And a kind of a tacit approval. And now I've got this thing called BizApp 650, and I want to make my Salto operations linked to that. So all I do here is I'm going to do a deployment here. So you're going to see a deployment, and I'm going to start with my dev environment. I'm going to deploy to my prod environment. I'm gonna call this thing BizApp 650, and then this is sort of, how about this? How about version 1 of the new SO workflow. And so now, and I'm going to create a new comparison. Okay, so the first thing that's going to happen here is that I'm going to see what's different again, just like that last screen I was showing you. But now I'm actually going to be able to select things that are different. So if I go into, I'm going to find that GWR was the SO maybe. Yeah, there it is. Okay, I'm going to find that workflow. So here's the workflow. It's different between dev and prod. It exists in dev. It actually doesn't exist at all in prod yet. That's why we're calling it an addition. So we've compared dev and prod. We've noticed that this workflow exists in dev. It does not exist in prod. If I wanted to make it exist in prod, I can simply select it. And when I select it, it's going to remind me of the things that are dependent, right? So it's like, okay, there's a bunch of things that I need to grab here. There's 5 transaction body fields that don't exist in prod yet either, so I better add those. There's some other stuff, but there's actually another place where I can look at dependencies. So I'm going to leave those ones selected, and we can come in here, we can look at our selected elements and see that yeah, indeed, I've got a workflow. I've got 5 transaction body custom fields, but Salto is still telling me here that there's some stuff missing. It's like, hey, don't forget, you've got a workflow action script you need and a custom list that you need to make all this, to make all that stuff work. So I'm going to grab all those, and it's going to remind me one more time, hey, don't forget about the suite script. The file in the file cabinet has to be pulled over as well. I pulled over the record, but I didn't actually pull the file over, so Salto is reminding me you have to include the file too. And once I've got that, I can go ahead with the promotion. Wait, let me just check one thing, make sure I've got something set here. Version control. Yes, okay, great. It's set. I'm just checking to make sure that I've got this approval process set up, so that if I go back to that compare and deploy, which is this one here. Oh, actually, that before I move on, that's another interesting thought. The compare and deploy, all that work I just did to compare and then select, it's sitting here as a work item, and I can see this, but also my teammates can see this, and I can actually go into the thing here, and I can add someone, say hey Ido, can you please review my deployment? I'm not gonna do that because Ido's asleep right now, but he's in Israel, so that could force or recommend him to come in here and look at the this deployment and have him contribute to it or review it or something like that, so I can have some more team interaction with it. When I'm ready to go, I can move forward by clicking on preview, which case Salto is going to do some cool checks on stuff that we happen to know based on our history with SDF. We know what works and what doesn't work, and so we're going to do lots of checks against that to make sure that the deployer understands what might actually happen as a result. And the other thing we're going to do here is we're going to create a pull request on a GitHub repo or a Bitbucket repo or a ADO repo, whatever you like.
Or a
And that,
self-hosted.
what's that? Or
Or a
self-hosted. Yeah,
self-hosted
you
one.
bet. Absolutely. Yeah. And so we will create this pull request that is another element of protection against production, but also team interaction, right? It's like, hey, this is not ready to go yet. There's a pull request on GitHub that I need to go and look at. Okay, so I can actually view this pull request as myself on GitHub. So it's saying to me that, hey, my plan is to change these 11 things about my target environment, and so I can do a review. It's all in that. It's in the NACL, the NACL file language. But I can review what's being proposed, right? So there's a workflow action script. This is the script record. There's a list record with, looks like I've got green, red, blue, silver, purple. It's like, oh, you know what? It's missing orange. So maybe I'd send some notes back to the deployer saying, can you remember to put orange in there? And so I can do reviews, and oh, that's not it. Sorry. I can put in my review. And I can say, don't forget orange. And I can just comment on that. But you notice I can't approve my own here, right? So I can submit my review. It's just part of the conversation now here as in GitHub. And so this becomes that, the way that the developer community has succeeded in uh, uh, really magnifying their effectiveness as an industry. They went through the whole DevOps and Agile revolution to get there, and that revolution hadn't really happened for the biz apps people. And so this is kind of a way that allows the tools of the DevOps revolution to be applied to business applications as well. So we get opportunities like having conversations in an approval process. But if I actually wanted to go and approve that, I got to come in as someone else here and look at that pull request that's waiting for me here. So I'm logged in as this is our mascot. So if you've ever been to a show and seen like a NetSuite world, you've seen Knuckles here. This guy's name is Knuckles. So I'm logged in as Knuckles. I'm going to look at that pull request. In this case, I can add a review because I'm not the deployer. So I can come in here and I can, looks good to me. We'll do orange later. And I'm going to do the approval here and submit my review. And once that's approved, if I go back to Salto now, hang on, where's Salto? This thing here, we're monitoring that pull request. And as soon as we notice that the pull request has been approved, we actually change that to ready to deploy. And now I can click on the deploy button, and this is going to actually reach out to my production environment and make all those changes for me. And this now is it's all part of this Jira ticket as well. I think the PRs are on there too. Let's see, are the PRs on there? Maybe not yet. But the commits will be there. I think the PRs are there. Normally, if I go into here, 585 is a good one because it's got 33 pull requests. I its one a lot for demos. So it's got lots of branches associated with it. It's got 83 commits associated with it, and it's got 33 pull requests associated with it. And so this ticket was the locus of all that information. And if it's really cool because you can come in and look at any of those things, and you can look at the files that were part of that thing as well. And so this looks like a Jira. This was a Salto managing Jira. So this is a Jira automation here that we made some changes to. So, but the same thing applies to NetSuite, of course. Any comments about that or any questions about that from the audience, Eric?
No audience questions at the moment, but comments for me, certainly. I think hopefully you can kind of see how Salto ties into the tools that a lot of teams are already using. You might already be using Jira to manage your projects. Salto ties right into that. You might already be using Git, GitHub, GitLab, etc. If you are leading a development team, your team is likely, hopefully, from my perspective, already doing code reviews. And if you noticed on the pull request that Salto opened up, if you could go back to the pull request, I think
This is here, pull
it
request.
ties into whatever checks, conditions you have for approval on your GitHub pull requests or GitLab or whichever Git provider you use. Salto respects all of those checks as well. So if you have CI/CD checks that need to run for your pull requests, if you have, whatever approval requirements you have in place, whatever branch protection rules you have in place, all of those are still respected by Salto. So you can bring whatever your whole DevOps pipeline is. Sorry. Whatever your whole existing DevOps pipeline might be, Salto ties right into that simply by you having it set up in GitHub or GitLab or whichever.
And even further to that, we actually have other places. I don't think I do it here. Oh, I did. Good. Where we actually have workflow actions, and when this is no longer available, but when things like a PR gets approved, we can actually invoke things, right? Or actually, when the PR gets created, we can invoke things. So I can run the deployment in the next hire environment as soon as it's approved, for example, rather than waiting for someone to click the deploy button. So there's lots of automation we can do with these pull requests as well. So it's another way, and I'm alluding to the broader CI/CD functionality that I mentioned at the start, and I'll bring that up again closer to the end.
Great. So yeah, I think hopefully the overall picture here, and we'll we might show a little bit more as well is that it's tying into Salto is tying into the systems your team is likely already using.
Yeah.
So it ties fairly seamlessly right into processes and communication tools that you're already using. I do
Yep.
have a couple questions now. Um, First one from Yorgo. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing that correctly. I apologize if I'm not. Does Salto support integration with Azure DevOps?
Yes. Yes, we do. Uh, so I've got one right here. So here is an ADO based environment where my change log in production probably. Nope. Here we go. Okay, where my change log is a list of uh, commits on ADO. See if my password's still valid here. Let's see here. I think it's this one here. They sign in, sure. So here's ADO. Oh, okay. Well, okay. So something I must have changed something. But I probably logged into the wrong account. But yes, we do support ADO. All those these are ADO discussion numbers, right? And so we can look at the ADO discussion number. It gets tied to that, and it'll create pull requests and do all the same sorts of things.
Fantastic. Second question, another one from Anonymous. I'm not actually sure how to answer this one, but can we do a SuiteScript deployment to a particular role or employee?
That's a Eric question if I ever heard
Yeah,
one.
I might need a little more context on what we mean because we don't, when you deploy something, whether it's code or a field or whatever, you deploy it to an account, not to a particular person or employee. You can set the permissions on those on whatever you're deploying. So if your script is only supposed to run for a specific role, you configure that in the audience of the script's deployment, and that Salto deploys that information. But whoever is logged in to Salto will be the user who is associated with that deployment. So when you go back and look at the history, Jeff, if you want to show like the deployment history through Salto, you can
This is it
see
here.
who deployed what, when.
Yeah.
Um,
This is all me, but if there's other people in my account, we see other people here deploying things.
so yeah, if your field or customization or custom object has permissions associated to it, those permissions will come right along when Salto deploys it. Um, so hopefully I'm close to what you were asking, Anonymous. But if not, feel free to ask follow-ups.
Just
Back
while
to
we're on
you,
the
Jeff.
history here, that's another good thing to show is that we've got history going back since 2022 looks like. So if I look in here, I can see what was happening. So this is another good way for teams to kind of come up to speed. If I was more verbose in my documentation, these all have a description here. And so if I was more verbose, I could see what I did, but I can also see exactly, what changes were made along the way. So it's a nice way to kind of look back in time at all the things that have happened in the past. And in fact, if we look at these, they also are recovery points, so I can actually restore any of these older versions of my environment too. So they're another kind of
Yeah,
nice way to recover from oops. From a team perspective, that means you get less of a headache when you make a mistake.
yeah. Less downtime, easy,
Yeah,
one-click rollback is maybe not one click,
less
maybe a
less
handful of
ridicule from your
clicks.
colleagues.
If something goes wrong, or yeah, if an audit team comes in, if your account is being audited, if you're working at a large public institution, maybe an audit team wants to see like, hey, what have you deployed to NetSuite for the past 3 months or year? You've got this list right here that you can show them, and it will tell you exactly what was deployed, when, by who, and go down to this like the text files we're showing specifically what was changed. So you can go even deeper than well, we know that field changed. We know that 2 roles were added to the permissions of that field on this day by this person.
here's a change of a script file, for example, a workflow action script, the file it referenced was changed. So those sorts of things are all available historically. Yep, great. Okay, moving on to another kind of team-oriented thing is the concept of monitoring and alerts. And so another feature that Salto provides is every time we do a fetch. So a fetch happens on a daily basis. It also happens after every deployment. And if you want to, I could just go and click the fetch button up here and it'll run another fetch for me, right? And it's going to start fetching now. So I can do fetches in a number of ways, but their fetches are something that happen relatively frequently. Every time we get a response from one of those fetches, we look at the notifications patterns that have been configured, and you can configure any number of notification patterns. And I can add another one down here and create a new pattern. But I've got some already set up. This one here, it's called workflow changes, but I can look and see exactly what it is. What it's looking for are modifications in this particular case to something that I've selected in here. It's probably some workflows. Well, there's some transaction buddy workflows. Oh yeah, okay. This is my workflow stuff. Right. These are the custom buddy transaction buddy fields that my workflow depends on. And then probably the workflow itself is here too, right? Yeah. So that approval workflow is selected. So anytime anything changes in this approval workflow, I'm going to get a notification in my in a Slack message. Now, this might be a little stale in terms of what I'm looking for, but it might be there. Let me have a look. And then there are other things too. I've got a SOX elements one. I've selected a bunch of things that maybe are important for the SOX people that they want to watch. They want to watch for example, changes to accounts. Right, any change to an account, this trigger will go and it'll get sent to the SOX team in this case, right? It's just sent to me, but I've updated the SOX thing here. So if I ever change an account, the SOX team is going to get an email, and that happens on every fetch. So every day or so, these things will go up. So it's a nice way of keeping folks engaged. Let's see, do I have one that's going to I might have one that's going to this might not be all that fresh, but actually it is good. So earlier today, I did a fetch, and at 11:57, some things changed. A custom list, this changed, etc. And I did a fetch, and I got this message to a Slack channel. So it's another way to look at the change. I can get it in an email, or I can get it in a Slack channel, whatever is the preference of the team. Some teams like ADO message boards. If that's the case, you can just do an email integration there. So we support Slack and email out of the box, but it's easy to integrate with email and into other boards.
Yeah. So if you are, your team is actively working on this specific workflow, a specific area of an account, and you want to closely monitor changes being made, or you're trying to maybe troubleshoot an issue and you're not sure what's going on, you can set up these targeted alerts and you can send them straight into the team's Slack channel or wherever is most appropriate to alert everyone that, hey, something changed. That can help you troubleshoot or just keep you notified and aware of what's happening. So really useful. I've got a video on Salto's YouTube channel about how to see something that's burned me a few times in the past is when I have code that runs a saved search and uses the results of that saved search for something, and administrators will go in and change that search not knowing that a script needs it. They'll change it and it'll break my code. You can actually set up a search, a filter here, a monitor for let me know if there are any searches which are referenced by JavaScript files that change. And so I can just get an email alert if any of my clients change one of the saved searches that my script is running. You can set up these highly targeted alerts to notify you and just keep you up to date so hey, I might want to go look at something over here.
Yeah. So referenced by a search, for example. Thank you for that. I was trying to find the function. Here it is here. So anything that's referenced by any saved search, actually. In this case, any role that's referenced by a saved search will get an email based on that. So lots and lots of flexibility on these monitors.
I do have a quick question here from Russell. Does
Okay.
Salto cover elements like enable features, accounting preferences,
Yep,
etc.?
absolutely. That's a great one.
Yes, it
Let's
does.
set one up here. So I'll do two things. I'll set one up here and then we'll go and look at it what that actually means here. But in Salto, we've got this settings type here, and so I can look at any change in accounting preferences, user preferences, any of these that are changed or modified, whether additions or deletions. We'll do that. So this is like a company settings or something like that. Accounting settings. HAC, I can't type when people are watching, so I'm just gonna leave it. And okay, and so in this case, I'm gonna send it to a Slack channel, and I'm gonna send it to my Jeff notification Slack channel. All right, and then click on save. All right, cool. So now I've got one set up so that anytime any of those company settings are changed in prod, I'm gonna get that notification. So if I go back to Explorer and look at settings, for example, this is actually kind of cool. I can look at accounting preferences, for example, and see how things are set up. So that's nice. It's nice to be able to see them all in one place in a big list. If anyone's ever done any pre-go live checks on, say, accounting preferences or company features and had to look at the differences between two environments, that's another place where a comparison is really handy. So I can come back in here and I can compare my two environments and look at company settings or something like that, and actually look at the differences specifically in just settings. So in this case, I'm going to look at company features. Company features differs between these two environments. And so, billing accounts in my production environment is currently set to no. I could change it to yes if I wanted to, but at the very least, I can see what the difference is. So that's kind of handy, right? So I can see all the differences as they show up in my two environments.
Yeah. So not only can you read my mind, by the way, this is exactly what I was going to talk about next when I saw this question, but not only can you make the changes, or not only can you see the changes through Salto, you see the differences, but you can make the changes through Salto, and now they're tracked. They show up in the history. You know who did it. You know when. There aren't system notes for this sort of thing in
Mhm,
NetSuite. You can't necessarily find this information for all of these, all
mhm.
of the settings and features. Uh, so you don't have to rely on NetSuite to track that for you. Salto is doing it on your behalf so long as you make those changes through Salto.
Yep.
So it gives you one place to make all these changes
Yep.
and to view all the changes too. You don't have to make multiple system notes reports. You know, one for each record type or customization that you're trying to manage. It's all in one spot in the Salto UI.
Yep. Cool. Maybe, let's see. Maybe I'll just do a very quick. I'm not going to show the process of getting here, but I will show the idea of using pull requests as a way of injecting Salto functionality into a pipeline. So let me go back to here. Let's see here. It's going to be in, I think it's NTNX. Yeah. If I look in here, well, first of all, there's a bunch of closed pull requests. These pull requests were actually initiated by, in my case, VS Code, but could just as easily be WebStorm or Eclipse or whatever else. So the pull requests were created in through a development process that developers are used to. In fact, let me just really quick here go into Visual Studio Code, and the process here would be to create a branch, right? If I'm doing working in VS Code, I'd create a branch, support bizapp dash 650, right? Which is the workflow stuff we were doing a minute ago. And then I don't know, update code, whatever it is. This is a branch. So now I'm working in this branch, and I would work on some of my Sweet scripts, right? And I would add code to them, right? And I think I've got this thing set up to do that. Yes, I do. Okay, so I'm adding code. In this case, it's just a comment, but whatever. And then when I save that, oops, here we go. When I save that, um, now I've got some source code control that I need to execute, make a commit on that. It's 1247 on the commit. And now I'm going to publish this branch because there's commits on that branch, right? So this is very developer centric stuff. This is the, like I said before, okay, well, I can't do that. Git's doing something really weird today. I don't know what's going on, but I would do all the same operations that I would do as a developer. And what happens is that shows up as a pull request in GitHub that I can approve. And once it's approved, I can execute GitHub actions on that, where in this case, this is not it. I'm looking for the wrong one here. Hang on. No, this one here. If I look at the actions that have been executed here, once upon approval of a PR, what this workflow action actually did was to create a deployment up in UAT. And so I did that by putting some GitHub action stuff in place to automate that. And so as soon as I submitted the pull request and approved it, that created this functionality in Salto where a deployment was created based on the content of that pull request. And so this is some change in the JavaScript code. You can see I just added comments before. And that was all driven by a Git driven process. And so Salto is just the place where you go to either approve or monitor or include both the developer changes as well as the administrator changes. So you kind of funnel all the activity of modifying NetSuite, whether it's a developer doing Suite scripts or a administrator creating roles or workflows, etc. All of that activity can then be consolidated in a single place. And so when we look at the history of all the things that have ever been done, this is going to include both stuff that developers were doing. And you can see that this is a SFDX or SDF pull request. And this one here is a compare and deploy. So this here was something I did as an administrator, whereas the other one was something that was done as a developer. And so we're kind of consolidating all of that work into a single platform and allowing you to monitor and manage that through a single process or set of processes.
And if you happen to be managing a team or have multiple teams that are doing this, maybe you have a NetSuite team and a Salesforce team and a Zendesk team, right?
Mm-hmm,
Salto
yeah,
supports all of
absolutely.
those. You can coordinate all of those deployments and communicate about all of them again through Salto.
Actually, on UCP. Yeah, so this is
We're not.
the same stuff except in CPQ, right? Or Salesforce. So all the Salesforce objects are the same. So if any of you out there are aware of Salesforce, there's an account object that has a bunch of custom fields on it. So it's the same kind of thing, same processes and operations, but now we're looking at a Salesforce environment instead of a NetSuite environment. So we cover Salesforce, we cover NetSuite, we cover Okta, Jira, Zendesk, what else? Zora to some degree, Workato to some degree, etc. So lots of applications that Salto covers.
All right, before we move on too far, I've got some questions here, more
Okay.
both from Anonymous. We talked about the sort of dependency with the save search example and a script. What is required for Salto to identify a dependency, in this example, a save search, but any dependency within a script?
Yes, we capture all the dependencies in the script. So what we do when we see script Suite script code, we actually look in the Suite script code for things that appear to be NetSuite elements, and when we find those, we create references to them directly. And so if I go and let's look at a where's a script bundle? No, I want to look at how about a RESTlet maybe, or no, user event script. No, that's what I want. No, client script. Sorry. There we go. Those are stuff. So if I look here, do I have any references on this one? Let me look at the custom fields. There's something funny about my UI today, I'm afraid, so I can't show up. But we look into the file itself. Here's the file. In fact, maybe I can see it. Here's the content of the file, right? if I'm gonna cheat a little bit. I'm gonna go and look at the NACLO version of this, and we'll see if the references are put in there. Let me go back one more and look at the other one for the script file. That's that one. Okay, I can't find it. But yes, we do capture that. It's just today, for some reason, I'm missing some UI elements. So I think my machine needs a reboot because GitHub is misbehaving too, and some things are weird. So, but yeah, we do capture that. We call them generated dependencies. So we generate a list of dependencies in addition to the formal dependencies that are easy to spot. We actually have code that looks through and generates the dependencies within Sweet scripts too.
So you'll not only detect IDs in the code, like Jeff is saying, but also then um, on the script object, you would see any dependencies that are in the script parameters. So script parameters are something stored on
Mhm.
the deployment level, not the code file level. So you'll see code dependencies on the file, and then you'll see script parameter dependencies on the deployment,
Yep.
the script deployment record, not the Salto deployment. And then a follow-up question to that ties in nicely. What are the risks when we see this list of dependencies and click deploy?
Uh,
Can we prevent overriding one of those dependencies if we did
right.
not intend to?
Yeah, that's a great question. So you have the choice. So the dependency you saw where I was forced to include them was a dependency in the case was that that thing didn't actually exist in the target environment. So in order for that workflow to function, you needed to create that environment. If the field already exists in the target environment, you will have a choice on whether to include that in the deployment or not. And so it'll remind you, it actually reminds you in a different place. It says this is not a required dependency, it's an additional dependency. The workflow depends on that field, and that field is different between source and target, but you don't have to include that in the deployment if the changes are not relevant to the changes in the workflow, or you're not ready to deploy something to prod yet, you can choose not to do that yet.
I think we'll have a poll coming up here,
Okay.
another poll coming up here pretty soon. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, perfect
uh,
time.
Another question, again from Anonymous. Great
Okay.
job, Anonymous.
Yep.
Today, I have some Suite apps managed in different environments, i.e., different clients entirely.
Okay.
Do you think Salto could help with the CI/CD process in these cases? We are having a lot of problems updating Suite apps in different environments with SDO.
Great question. So Suite apps are we can the way we participate in Suite apps is in the creation of them at your end. We don't really do the deployment to customer. If you have customers and you want to use Salto to deploy to those customers, we can do that, but not via Suite apps. Suite apps kind of they preclude the use of another tool because they do all that work themselves. But we do have a few a few kind of partners out there who use Salto to connect to customer environments, and then they would just deploy changes like you see. We would just have customer environments in this list in addition to the internal environments. So yeah, it's possible to do that, but it would be uh, a different process from deploying Suite apps.
Right, I'm out of questions here. That poll is up. Take a
Okay.
few seconds to respond to that. Got
Okay.
some responses coming in, I see.
Well, that's the end of my content for the day. I'm happy to answer more questions if they come up.
Great.
But I
Yeah,
just like to thank
last
everyone for making the
chance.
time.
Absolutely. Last chance, everyone, for questions for Jeff or myself. But take a few seconds, fill out that poll, and then let's see. Once again, I want to thank you all for being here, first of all, and you can check this out all for yourself. If you haven't seen Salto before, you want to try it out for yourself, you can head over to salto.io, sign up for a completely free 30-day trial, and also get customized demos once you have everything set up. I think that for me, when I first started with Salto, that was a great way, like trying it out, playing around. I got kind of stuck. I wasn't really sure what to do after a certain point. So getting someone to just look at it with me, walk through some use cases with me, really helped clarify everything in my head of like, okay, now I see, how I can use this, how I can employ this, uh, either for myself, with a team, etc. So having someone who knows what they're doing, kind of hold your hand and talk you through those use cases you have is extremely helpful. I
We
believe
have something
y'all will
called
be
Salto
at
Office Hours, which
Sweet
Salto
World too,
Office
right?
Hours allows us to do that.
Hmm. And y'all will be at Sweet World. So if anybody out there will be in Sweet World, feel free to jump on over to the Salto booth. I don't know the booth number, do you?
No, I was gonna be there, but now I can't go. So my colleagues will be there, and they'll be eager to show you demonstrations, I'm sure. We're easy to find.
Absolutely.
I think it might be that we have a big purple Knuckles walking around the floor. Depends on who's brave enough to wear the suit. But we do have a life-size Knuckles that sometimes walks around the show floor.
All right. There are links in the chat to check out some of the stuff we mentioned today. Otherwise, I think I don't have any new questions coming in. So I think we will
Okay.
wrap up here. Jeff, thank you so much. Great demo.
Likewise. Thank you,
Booth
Eric.
224. See it. Booth
There it
224.
is. Awesome. Thank you, Eric.
Thanks, Eric.
All right.
All right. Thank you everyone for joining us, and check out salto.io.